Welcome to Angel Cafes, enlightening conversations from around the world with people who are living their dreams and their inner guidance.
So, everybody, welcome. We're back at Oasis Harbor with the Harbor Callings, and I have today a guest with us from Australia. This is Robin Tim So. Hi, Robin. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Cheryl. Very well. Yeah, it's
And
great
while
to.
you're I'm glad, while you're starting your day, I'm getting near the end of mine. So it's just sort of an interesting combination. But the whole thing begins and starts with, sharing and supporting and helping educate other people. And that's why we're here today. The Oasis Harbor Callings and the Angel Cafe are all about supporting other people and allowing them to find their own way. And sometimes we need a little bit of support on our navigation through life. Um, Today, I was wondering if you could start us out with how you got started on your journey here. I know it involves Chinese medicine, acupuncture in particular, and I know that you have a passion of yours as well that we'll talk about in a bit. But what actually started you off? If you were going to start in one place, what moved you to where you are now?
I think going back to my history of growing up, I had a grandmother who was not quite into herbs and Chinese medicine, but she used a lot of different things when we were little kids. So I never had, I think throughout my life I've had one course of antibiotics from the medical profession, and even then I had nightmares and I just stopped. I stopped. So my body is totally free of any medication from that time. My grandmother used to do, herbs and pills and make up teas and so forth as a very little kid. Anyway, so my initial path was to become a doctor of medicine. Obviously, I have probably three or four uncles that were all doctors of medicine, so it was a very much of a family type pathway to take. Even though my father was not in medicine, he owned a restaurant. And looking back, fate guided my destiny away from medicine very early because I missed out on the quota to become a doctor or go to university and study it. And within a year or two, the opportunity came to become an acupuncturist. And so for me, it was, I guess, being very young, I just went with it. I didn't really question it too much. I went with it, and things unfolded magically from there. I always say I never really made a decision to become an acupuncturist. It just happened around me, and it wasn't
That's
to my
That's
excuse.
really important for a lot of people to hear that because we all look back, sometimes hindsight's wonderful, isn't it? And we wonder if we chose the right field or we've naturally moved out of one thing into another. But it's not always a struggle. Sometimes we just sort of seem to fit what's coming to us.
I would say that's the case, especially when I was younger. I mean, I was more naive and open to the idea that anything's possible, and so I allowed that to flow. I mean, I still do it now.
Good. That's awesome.
Whatever's going to happen tomorrow is going to happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
So right now, where are you at in this? What are you doing day to day, and how do you feel you've grown into what you're doing, and why you love it so much?
These days, it's just a matter of a commitment to get up in the morning and to go to clinic and work with the people that show up. I've always said that. I said, no, if nobody shows up into my practice, then I'll probably do something else. I've never really had even an attachment to what I do. If you really want, I don't have a huge attachment. Everybody else probably who comes to see me do give me accolades and support, and I appreciate that. But I've always had this idea that I just do the work, and the work is moment to moment, and the skill of energy work with needles, acupuncture needles, and understanding the meridians. Well, that's just a part of the training.
And does being in service to other people by helping them with their pain and their issues through the needlework, is that something that is passionately filling your soul?
Not anymore. I just do it. I mean,
Mhm.
early in my career, I would say I was passionate about what I do. But there was a point in time where I just saw that that's what I do. So I no longer was passionate about it. It was just what I do, you know? So I, I think there was a stage after passion where you're just living it.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's I don't have to, I don't emphasize it, I don't motivate myself to do it. That's just what I do, you know. Yeah.
But you don't feel like, oh no, it's Monday and I have to go back to work today. That doesn't hit you. You always just do it because you're living it.
Well, no, I do get those sort of
Oh,
days.
you do. Okay.
That's just my human side of things. It doesn't last. I just go and do what I do, you know.
Right, right.
I find magically these days my clinic can be very quiet, and that gives me time to just to catch up on myself, and then it'll just get busy again. It goes in waves. There was once upon a time that I was booked out for days in advance, and that was it. You start at 8 and you go all the way through the day. But these days, I've switched off a lot of intent in working and practicing that way. I work with the flow of my career now more so.
Well,
And when
that's
the
interesting.
want my service, then I'm there. It's like a commitment that aligns with a greater force.
So you still see alignment in that. It isn't always getting up and going 8 to 5 with one person after another. There's alignment, room for you in the middle of it all, right?
Yes. Probably in the last 10 years, I've actually added me into the equation more.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what are you passionate about now? Like what are you working towards? Where are you going on your next journey?
Yeah. Well, I would say the first phase of my career, first chapter, was all about understanding the physical body and understanding, physical ailments, headaches, backaches, asthma, sinus complaints. So it's very much symptom based. And then after a period of time, that I evolved into understanding how the emotional body and spirit and the alignment of spirit versus the emotions created disease, became a full understanding and a passion, to some degree, a passion at that point in time, to
Yeah.
understand to that, to get more clear on what was going on. So, obviously, patients started to be attracted from that point of view. What goes on within me, I've always attracted in patients.
That's that's something that I'm so happy you mentioned that because there's a lot of people out there that don't really feel that yet, right? They maybe at a stage in their life where they're still working the 9 to 5 and they're doing something they like. They don't look at it like they don't like it, but they haven't taken it on to mean more for them and for their spirit, for their alignment, you know, their balance, really. It's balance again, just like acupuncture.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, we're born alone, we leave alone. So really, we're alone together while we're here.
That's great. I love it.
So, you know, in our loneliness with ourselves, we're mastering our life, our pathway. So there's a level of self involved in the process of living a purposeful life. You have to have an element of self. It's not selfish, it's just self. So in the process of self, I've just evolved along the way in what I have desires to understand and master. So the last phase of my career, well, I actually think it's my last phase of my career, but something else could evolve after this, is longevity. Um, there was probably in my 40s, I decided the question kept coming to me, is like, how long does a person want to live? Does a person wake up in the morning and say, how long do they want to live? Then there's spiritual writings about, a person has a contract of life, and when they finish their contract, and that maybe it's time for them to go. And I sort of really, I'm open to the idea, but I also do believe that we have some sort of, we have a part in deciding how long we want to live. So I pose the question of how long do you want to live? To a lot of people, and most people have trouble even wanting to answer that question. So I realized then that was a lot of resistance around even going there.
Right.
So it opened up my mind to actually study it a lot more. So I studied the process of longevity, study the process within myself, and you know, it goes deeper. It's a very deep subject, and every time I look at acupuncture information now, I read it from understanding it from how does that fit with longevity.
Oh,
You know?
that's interesting. So are you you're not doing it, are you doing any studies on it? Are you doing any programs for it?
The continual study as regards background information of acupuncture, scientific background information these days with the length of the telomeres and how slow down telomere length from reproducing and harming. And so there's a little bit of research I'm doing on that at this point in time. And most scientific backgrounds talk about high intensity interval training that helps telomere lengths. Then there's nutrition, obviously, and supplementation, whether it be organic, non-GMO nutrition.
Right. So it's balance in all areas of life. It's your rest, your sleep, your health, what you eat, how much exercise you get, what you don't do that you shouldn't do. I mean, what you're not doing that you're not supposed to be doing, that type of thing.
But I think first and foremost is a driving force to live a sense of purpose, and then the rest falls into place behind that. Like,
Yes.
go and do exercise, but you know, would that be my first priority of the day? Probably not. No, my first priority is to tune in and meditate on what my day is all about, and what opportunities for me to be of service are coming towards me. I mean, I sometimes pick up insights about a patient before I even meet them. You know, it's just tuning in.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens as a first priority. Yes, that's my like. I always used to say that my purpose is like the wind in my sails.
The winds that brought you to the oasis.
And then you have the currents and, you know, different directions of the wind blowing, but it's actually the wind in the sails that is the major force. So from there, then the day unfolds. You know, eating, good exercise, good rest, all the normal things that everybody should be taking care of. Yeah.
Right. So there's an intent to living longer. And I have to tell you this cute little story. There was a fellow they interviewed that was well over 100, and they asked him what he looked forward to each day. And he looked forward to his one glass of brandy in the evening. And that's what he looked forward to the night before when he went to sleep. So there's still a wind in his sail, right?
Yes, exactly. And it can be as simple as that, to have something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That path, then I find I think it's, yeah, you know, it's time for everybody to sit down and really have a good look at themselves and say, how long do they want to live, without comparison for anything else, for any other people that they've known throughout their life. You know, it's like, you know, my grandfather passed away at 88, so you know, that was pretty good, and he was last year, so therefore I don't want to live that long. You know, they have to delete all that out, because what happened before with their relatives or their friends doesn't necessarily have to be for themselves. You see?
Wonderful. If people want to find you, I know they can find you on your Facebook page. It's Acupuncture Wisdom Online. Is that correct?
Acupuncture Wisdom Online, which is 3 words, but we make it into 1 word, .com.
Oh, I see. Okay. Is that your website?
But sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And I noticed a couple of articles on longevity that I really enjoyed reading, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I tend to get information and it comes together, and then I write it, and then I don't get anything to write for a long time, and so I leave it. There's the stuff that I write doesn't really have a date to it. I think it'll be around forever, and it's pertinent to any age, timing that a person may be in life. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I know you're busy, so I hope we can chat with you again. This has been just sort of an introduction to who you are, and we'd love to hear more from you in a little bit when we get our all our ships that are in the harbor through the process.
That would be really, yeah, that would be fascinating. I quite look forward to chatting a little bit more about the different things. I mean, there's, as I said to you, I don't have a high attachment to what I do, because the least attachment I have to it, the better it flows. So yeah, I look forward to sharing whatever's happening for me in the future.
Oh yes, I look forward to hearing more about that, because I totally agree with you, but it's not something that comes to mind first thing that I'm actually living in the middle of. There's life all around us, and we have to find a place for it, right?
Correct. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the Oasis and have a cup of coffee or a little bit of a refreshment at the bar here, and and share some more of your stories with the rest of the folks here. The Oasis is always full. There's always lots going on. We have workshops, we have support groups, we have meditation groups, foundation groups. It's all really good. Yeah.
A lot of things happening. I mean, yeah, I've had a little look at and see all those different things that are going on. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so you have a great day, Tim. Or sorry, Rob and Tim. There's a story behind that, but we won't get into that right now.
Join us next time on Angel Cafes for new and exciting adventures around the world.